What does J.J. Abrams have to do with Spider-Man, and why did it make fans angry? Well, you're about to find out here on Casually Comics. I'm Sasha, and I'm fully aware that I'm what some people would call late. And yes, that is true, but I feel in many ways this replicates the potential experience of a casual fan or a new fan who's just coming into all of this comicdom. When you're just getting started in a fandom, it can take a little while to catch up with all of the fandom minutia and goings on. It's a bit like arriving to a party late. All the conversations are already going on, so not only do you have to figure out exactly who's talking about what where, but also what you're going to contribute, if anything. But not here. This is a judgment-free zone. Whether you know a little or a lot, Casually Comics is happy to have you. If you're ready to get into the zone, hit that like button. So recently, the Spider-Man fandom was abuzz thanks to a mysterious tweet sent out by Marvel Comics. This tweet was then retweeted by C.B. Cebulski, which was a big deal as he is currently editor-in-chief over at Marvel. So in other words, the retcon king, should he so choose. The tweet in question was a 4 presented in 1960s animated style webbing, with the retweet reading, "No one is gonna see this coming." So of course fans were off, wondering just what could it be? And there were a few theories that quickly rose to the top. The lead-off assumption right off the bat was that this was a Spider-Man 4 comic adaptation, that being the 4th Sam Raimi film that never actually coalesced. Sam Raimi directed the first Spider-Man trilogy, starring Tobey Maguire, which is still beloved by many fans and of course memed because of how it ended. I wouldn't hate it if the new ones had some more dancing. Ultimately, after Spider-Man 3 was a bit of a mess, the series was rebooted with Andrew Garfield and the Amazing Spider-Man series began. However, Raimi did have plans for a 4th film, and so fans believed maybe those plans were going to be adapted into a comic book. It wouldn't be the first time this had happened, so it isn't beyond the pale. In general, medium switches from TV or movies into comics, be it a continuation or some kind of spin-off or tie-in, is quite common. Cliff notes, people got excited. The other prominent theory was that this was going to be some kind of ultimate team-up with the Fantastic Four. Again, this was a distinct possibility. Peter has quite the history with Marvel's first family, and has long been, after a rocky start, best friends with Johnny Storm, when writers remember that is. Some thought as the Fantastic Four had been off the scene for a little bit, this was going to be a really cool way to reintegrate them into the Marvel Universe in a big way. But the next day, there was a number 3, so disappointment slowly began to creep in. However, some still held out hope, because who starts a countdown at 4? You start one at 5 or 10. 4 was such an odd number, they felt it had to mean something. Some also began to take issue with Cebulski's tone, which some read as friendly ribbing and others read as trolling, with the tweet accompanying the number 3. Wait, so it's not a Spider-Man/Fantastic Four crossover? You mean it's not a comic adaptation of Spider-Man 4? I told you, you will not see this one coming. Number 2's tweet read, dashing hopes that Spider-Man was going to join the Warriors 3, which some read as a mockery of those who had been really into the idea of the Sam Raimi 4th adaptation, feeling this was saying that, oh, it's far-fetched, you're silly. And the number 1 tweet was the one where fans really began to cry bait, that they were being played with. And that one was, looks like we only have to wait one more day for the big Spider-Man reveal. Just joking. We actually just talked about One More Day in our last video. We discussed how it came about and the fan reaction to it, and why it is one of the most disliked Spider-Man stories of all time. Fans don't really want Marvel joking about One More Day. Yes, it came out in 2007, but it's still too soon. Most fans only want to hear about One More Day if it's to make it go away. Yes, that rhymed, and yes, I'm really happy about it, because I'm lame. So with all of that anticipation, fans were ready to find out just exactly what this was, and boy, get ready. Drum roll. We could not be more thrilled to announce that at J.J. Abrams, Henry Abrams, and at Sarah Pichelli will be launching a new Spider-Man comic series for @Marvel this September. Yeah, this one went over badly for a couple of reasons. One was the build-up, the huge level of anticipation, which is often, unless it's something truly amazing that everyone wanted, a letdown. Also, some felt that what they had wanted was more exciting than what was ultimately given to them. 2, we're numbering things now. J.J. Abrams and his reboots. Some people like them and others feel he's incredibly derivative and has a hard time tying plots together. Side note, he's also in negotiations with Warner to potentially reboot the DC universe. Potentially, it's all up in the air at this point, so some find this to be a confusing development. In all fairness though, this has been in development or talks, or they've been trying to do this for over a decade. 3. Okay, but before we get to 3, can we talk about this cover? Okay, I love how they look, but with how she's positioned, it looks like she's about to plunge to her death. He does not have a good grip on her, and we know after what happened to Gwen, he would be holding on so tight. That was a Gwen Stacy death joke. Is it too soon? Is it ever appropriate? Well, if it's not, then I'm inappropriate. All the time. 3. Abrams has never really written a comic, and some feel that there are so many other authors who are clamoring to go and write something like this that really it should have gone to them. 4. Nepotism. Now, nepotism happens all the time, all over the place, and despite the fact that many people, if they had the chance, would totally employ some nepotism, they don't like seeing it rubbed in their face. In short, some feel that Abrams' son is being given an unfair leg up over those who have struggled to get into the comic industry. Although we don't know, he could have been trying. Don't look at me like that. 5. Cadaverous. This is kind of lumped in with all the details that have been revealed about the miniseries so far, which is not a lot. It's coming out in September 2019. It's going to be 5 parts, so it's a miniseries, and the villain is called Cadaverous, which vacillates for people between sounding really cool or like something that their 12-year-old would come up with. Mileage varies. Again, I have some receipts, aka quotes, so get ready for them. This is all about the creative process. On the Genesis, Henry said, "I'm nervous, but I will do my best." Nick Lowe, the editor of this comic, reached out about 10 years ago. More recently, we began to develop an idea, a new and different and exciting take on Spider-Man. Most of my exposure to comics came when I was super young. Calvin and Hobbes, Tintin, Spy vs. Spy. I did have a Marvel compendium when I was 6 or 7 that I adored, and I would always land on this page of Spider-Man, not knowing anything about the character or the backstory or the powers, but connecting with the visual designs of Steve Ditko. I didn't really start reading him until I was 11 or 12. And at that point I realized that this is a character that I see myself in, and that was probably the first time I ever felt that way with any fictional character. Just for reference, outlets keep changing his age, like he's 20, he's 21, he's 22, so he's anywhere between the ages of 20 to 22. Pick one. Young. One is young. I feel like I've developed, not just as a writer, but someone that can appreciate stories more. Spider-Man is one of those superheroes where the more you read about him, for me at least, the less I understand him. He's so anti-everything that you'd expect from a hero. I think Stan Lee said something about putting the human in superhuman. That is what we're trying to do. On whether he would write more comics, JJ had this to say. "Sure, it's been fun working with Henry. I know that Henry has some other ideas for some. I can imagine working with Dad has its advantages, but I can imagine wanting to do things on his own." Now, some feel that everyone needs to calm down. This is just going to be 5 parts, and it's clearly a marketing ploy, and one that might pay off, though potentially not to the degree that they're anticipating. They think they're going to sell 1 million copies. We'll see. That's very hard these days. 1 million physical copies. The goal is also obviously to hopefully bring in some new readers. Some casual people who will be strolling through a store and see Spider-Man and be like, "I like Spider-Man. Oh, J.J. Abrams. I like J.J. Abrams," and hopefully pick it up, and maybe that will be their gateway into more comics. The gateway comic. Many feel that this blowback would be a lot smaller or potentially non-existent if the announcement had been handled another way. Seriously, why start the countdown at 4? Some feel that it was entirely deliberate, as they feel that the higher-ups at Marvel know that fans really do want a Spider-Man 4 by Raimi, or at the very least to know what would have happened in it. So they feel that this was intentional to get people talking about a Spider-Man 4 to build up buzz, and some negative hype. They feel this was to get more videos made, more articles written, more eyes on Marvel for when they finally made that final announcement. What do you think? Do you think that they were baiting the fans? Or do you think that people are overreacting? Are you excited for a comic written by J.J. Abrams and his son? Was that 4? I believe that was 4 questions, because things start at 4 apparently. I'm Sasha, and thanks so much for watching Casually Comics. I hope that you came away a little more informed than you were when you first got here. You know the drill. If you enjoyed, hit the like button and do all of the other YouTube things. I was about to say like again. Subscribe, share, comment, all of those good things so that we can grow. Let our casual comics get everywhere. We'll be back together again soon. Bye-bye.